Whether it's a game like Street Fighter, chess, any esport, any normal sport, you'll often hear people tell you to focus on yourself. Winning is not as important as being better than you were yesterday. And although that's, some great Zen Daigo Umahara, the will to keep winning advice, and it's true, that's how you improve, it's often not that easy. It's very easy to get tilted because this Honda who only learned 2 moves is beating you, and now the game sucks and it's laggy. It's very easy to kind of lose sight of improving in general and just kind of get frustrated with the whole process. This Overwatch guide I read a long time ago when I was learning Overwatch. It actually stuck with me for quite a while. It kind of put the fun back in improvement, and I'm not going to pretend like this is like some mind third eye opening information. It's a lot of what you already know about improvement, trying to focus on yourself and just being better, but just kind of the way that it's scoped and phrased let me focus more on myself, focus more on improvement, and kind of put the fun back in improving. It really lets me appreciate every single game I play, because as long as I can get even a little piece of information out of it, it feels like a fun game, win or lose. Okay, so here at elevateoverwatch.com is the guide. I'm not going to go through all of it. As you can see here, some of it is just about, your finger grip when you're aiming. Obviously, we don't care about any of that. But then we get down here to the part about the schematic. Now, I'm not going to read word for word this guide. I will link it in the description if it's something that interests you. I'm just going to talk about the main theme. But as you see here, there's dots on the low tier player on the left and the high tier player on the right. If you think about interactions in a fighting game or a game like Overwatch, anything really, every single game you play is filled with these interactions that you'll probably see again or something similar in every game you play. And while everyone slowly gets better at learning these situations and optimizing them, a higher tier player really focuses on lighting up every switch on their switchboard or making every red dot on their schematic green. However you want to visualize it, doesn't really matter. But the idea here is that if every situation is mapped out and you slowly get better at every single one, you eventually get to a point where the only way you start losing is when your opponent just like straight up plays better than you, right? Like they get a read on you, maybe they're just playing a better matchup, whatever. But when you have too many red dots or too many lights are turned off on your switchboard, whatever, you end up losing to a lot of things that are just avoidable, or that you could have just played better without even having to make a guess or something. A very easy example for this is something like a throw loop in Street Fighter 6. Most people just say, oh, I'm guessing for game because I got thrown in the corner. This game sucks. Now, sometimes that does happen, don't get me wrong, but maybe you had such a big lead, you never had to tech. You could have taken so many throws, maybe tried to backdash, maybe tried to jump out. The only way you lose is by getting shimmied, and while you whiffed a throw, now you take 50% of your life. Why would you ever take that risk? A more experienced player knew that they never have to tech. They could sit there and take a few throws. They could backdash, which doesn't leave you in a counter hit state and doesn't really lose to shimmy. Just a very small adjustment lets them win more games from a very common situation. One example I had, if we look at Marisa's Gladius, this is an example that I had. I remember for like literal days, every time I ran into a Marisa, especially early into the game's life, people would just charge and whiff this move in neutral all the time, especially if you showed them that you didn't know how to whiff punish it. I was pressing Cammy's stand heavy punch. I was even trying to jab it just to get like a jab spiral arrow for a knockdown, and I could not whiff punish it ever. As you can see here now in hindsight, we look at the hurt box. There is no hurt box on her arm. It might as well just be an invincible sword, right? But I didn't know that at the time, so I kind of just gave up. I said, whatever, I'll whiff it. Maybe I'll try to perfect parry it. Maybe I'll try to jump if I have a read. I'll jump over her. But I was playing this one situation poorly for no reason other than like I wasn't building my schematic properly, or I was trying to at least, but I was just wrong, which is fine, right? That's something. Sometimes you'll be wrong in your learning process, as long as you get to the point where you eventually figure out the answer. That's kind of the whole idea of the building your schematic. The way I found out how to whiff punish this is just by watching Kazunoko, and that's something they talk about in the guide. One way to speed it up is to find better players who are playing your character, and when they are dealing with certain things that you have trouble dealing with, pause it, pause the replay, think about what would I do here, see what they do, and then you add that to your schematic. Maybe what they did didn't work, but you can at least try to rationalize why they did it. So for me, I was watching Kazunoko fight a Marisa, whatever. She whiffed her Gladius and he swept her, and I said, why didn't I try to sweep? That seems so obvious, right? But because her hand was sticking out, to me visually, you whiff punish her arm. She's literally throwing her arm at you. Like most traditional fighting game logic tells you to hit the extended hurt box, but that's not what you could hit here because her arm has no hurt box. You have to hit her leg, which she kind of steps forward. It seems like an easy answer, and it kind of is, but I could have saved so much more time just watching a better player do it rather than whiffing my stand heavy punch, just assuming maybe I mistimed it for like, who knows, maybe it could have been weeks or months. This one interaction getting better at doesn't seem like a huge deal, but it really is just lighting up, on my grid. I now have one more green dot, and when you add those up over and over and over, it's kind of like you put the game, you gamify improvement, which sounds stupid because we're already playing a game. But as you know, improving sometimes feels like stressful, right? You get tilted at things because you're losing to things you think are stupid. You get mad and you're not ranking up, whatever. But when you kind of gamify the whole process, you stop caring about win or lose. You just said, did I light something up on my schematic? Did I get +1 matchup knowledge from this one game I just lost? Think of it as like a JRPG. You know, you're playing Fire Emblem, your character levels up, he gets +2 attack, whatever. They're not actually that much stronger than they were 5 seconds ago. But when you keep leveling up, all of a sudden you're one-shotting everything that you used to lose to. All of a sudden your schematic is on the right side here, where it's mostly green compared to how it used to be red, right? These little nuggets of knowledge you get from every single game should bring you gratification and just like feel like you're leveling up like a JRPG, or you're lighting up your schematic, and it feels good when you actually start thinking of the game this way. It's hard. I'm not going to just pretend like all of a sudden, you see these red and green dots in your head and you light one up after a loss, and all of a sudden losing to stupid things and people just spamming drive impact feels better now. It doesn't. Of course, you'll still get tilted. But when you kind of shift your attention to, is there literally one thing I learned from that match? And it could be one bad thing, right? Let's say you're playing against E Honda and you're trying to DP his headbutt on reaction. You thought like, I have the reactions, I could do this, and it's not working. Even though you lost and you didn't actually learn how to deal with the headbutt, you could at least cross one thing off. So, that green dot on your schematic, or that +1 in your JRPG stats, whatever the analogy you want to use, is closer, right? And then the next time you play, you start trying to parry it, and maybe you're not getting the perfect parry, but you're at least used to going for it. 2 or 3 times later, you fight Hondas and you start getting the perfect parries more consistently. Boom, right? That, even though that's just 1 dot on your schematic +1, it feels great. You'll start beating more Hondas than you used to. I don't know why I'm using Honda as an example. I feel like it's a character a lot of people get frustrated at, including myself. But yeah, I don't want to ramble on because I don't feel like this is a crazy concept, but I do think for some people, hopefully there's a few people out there who kind of find the fun in improving, because it is fun when you're just slowly noticing your improvements, even if you're losing games, right? You can't only have fun winning in fighting games, because there's too many people who are also trying their hardest to beat you, right? So chances are you're going to lose quite a bit. Finding the fun in losing and actually improving not only makes your experience more fun, it'll make you a better player. Like Daigo says in his book all the time, right? It's not about winning, it's about being better. The winning comes with it. That's not a direct quote. I don't remember. I haven't read that in like 2 years. But yeah, I hope you get what I'm saying. And at the bottom here, they talk about focus versus autopilot, and that's something I really quickly want to talk about. It's not some crazy concept either. I'm sure you've all known. You all remember a game where you kind of just autopilot, jumped at someone and you got DP'd. But on the contrary, I want you to think of those games where you're like very last hit. You have 10% life. The enemy Cammy on the other side of the screen has 10% life. You notice she's like teabagging or crouching, like, what's she doing? Oh, she has level 3. I can't throw a fireball. You're like hyper focused on everything she's doing to a point where like now you kind of get it, like, oh, she really wants me to throw a fireball, so I level 3, so I'm gonna run at her, whatever. And you have like this, you know what I'm talking about, right? Those like very tense situations in a game where usually it's last hit and you're just hyper focused. If you try to get to that point in everything you play, your schematic building process will become so much faster, because you're really trying to understand what your opponent wants you to do. You're going to start trying new things to beat it. You're going to stop doing like, don't throw a fireball at a Cammy with a level 3, right? Let's pretend that's a little tick on her schematic. Everyone like lights that one green quickly because it's something you learn quickly. It's very obvious that you messed up. And if you kind of put that much attention into every situation, whether it's, a very specific matchup thing like the Marissa one I talked about, whether it's something that has a lot of different options that even if you know all the options, you could be wrong still, like a throw loop, but you want to get better at picking the best options and weighing your risk reward. You get what I'm saying, right? The more focused you are on these small interactions, the faster you'll kind of fill up the green dot to feel like you're more comfortable in that situation. And when you're comfortable in every situation in the game, which is not easy, or I don't even know if it's possible, I'm sure there's just too many matchups, too many different like things you could do. But the more comfortable you are, now it gets to a point where your opponent just has to straight up outplay you, and that's kind of your goal. And even then, sometimes you'll lose, right? Players like Punk, you whiff a jab and he whiff punishes you. Yeah, like you're not going to learn much from there. You still have to press your button sometimes. But you get what I'm saying. I don't want to ramble on too much. If there's something you would like to know, let me know in the comments. I would love to help out. If there's anything else Street Fighter or fighting game related you'd like to see on the channel, again, let me know in the comments. I would love to make some more videos, but I'm kind of out of ideas until Akuma comes out. I cannot wait for that. Yeah, I would appreciate like, comment, and subscription. Stay beautiful, my friends.